Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
The original Anchorman and this film are the sorts of movies that have about a zillion quotable lines. Are fans forever coming up to you and quoting your own lines back to you?
Of the ones that they quote, the ones I hear most often are, I ate a big red candle, loud noises, I love lamp. You know, people will come up and say those. And for the first couple of years, it would take me a minute or two to register what that meant, because you forget. It's not like any of those things were, we never thought, who would have thought I Love Lamp would be destined to be on a t-shirt?
I remember once seeing an interview with the guy who played the teacher in Ferris Bueller's Day Off, and I mean, you can imagine how many times a day someone says to him, Bueller,
Right.
Bueller. And he said he considered it to be a great compliment that it was such an iconic line and that people felt comfortable enough to come up to him and say it.
Sure. I mean, if any of those things are giving people joy and makes people happy, you know, a lot of, milk was a bad choice is one of my favorite lines from the first one. And if people, you know, catchphrases are interesting because you never go into anything trying to create a catchphrase, or I think they are all inadvertent. I think for some reason things are lifted out and become favorites.
I'm Britt Tamlin. People seem to like me because I am polite and I'm rarely late. I like to eat ice cream and I really enjoy a nice pair of slacks. Years later, a doctor will tell me that I have an IQ of 48 and am what some people call mentally retarded.
One of the lines that people recall from the original film was one that your co-star Will Ferrell said, which was the Human Torch was denied a bank loan.
Oh, yeah.
You're sitting next to him, but you're framed out of shot. But in the DVD extras, it shows after he's delivered it, he cracks up laughing, and then the shot widens and shows you, and you are weeping with laughter. How do you not laugh in the takes when people deliver some of these hilarious zingers, just improvised and out of the blue?
Well, you're trying to, out of respect, really, it's trying to preserve a take. If somebody is improvising or having a really good take at something and it's funny, you don't want to laugh because then they won't be able to use it for the movie. And so you try, at least I do, I try to think that's being selfish. Me laughing and destroying their take is taking something away from them. So so I try to hold it together, but sometimes you can't. I mean, these guys are so funny to be around. Sometimes it's almost impossible.
Steve Martin, the comedian, in his book Born Standing Up, writes that he thinks that enjoyment isn't much of the part of the process of making comedy because actually enjoying it takes you away from the focus that you need. Mm-hmm. What you're describing does sound like it requires a lot of focus. Does that take away from the enjoyment of doing it for you?
No, I think it adds to the enjoyment because when you know that everyone is on the same side, when you know that everyone is supporting you as adamantly as you are supporting them, it's a real liberating feeling to know that you're all in this together. You're sort of one, and not to put too fine a point on it because it's Anchorman, it's really silly and stupid and absurd, but you're kind of one organism, you know, and you're all trying to just make it good and funny. And so that to me is the enjoyment, to know that you are part of something vastly greater than us as individuals.
Were you a kid who liked comedy? Did you watch much comedy growing up? People like Steve Martin?
Steve Martin, I'm a huge Steve Martin fan. I listened to, and back when I was growing up, it was mostly listening. I would have comedy albums. My older brothers had Bill Cosby records, and I would listen to those extensively, and I listened to George Carlin a lot. But Steve Martin was probably one of the most influential people for me.
You're an actor who appears in comedies. You're not a comedian. You're not a stand-up
Clearly,
comic.
based on this interview, I'm not.
When you meet new people, do you feel the weight of expectations of, oh God, they're going to expect me to be funny because I'm Steve Carell?
It's interesting because the four of us are doing a lot of interviews together for Anchorman, and I feel like such a wallflower because these guys are so funny and so, you know, so quick-witted, and I, you know, I'm not much of a jokester. I'm a much better audience. You know, I love to listen, I love to laugh, I love to be a part of it. But I'm, you know, is there an expectation? I suppose, at first, and then once you get to know me, you know that I'm a total bore.
I'm telling you, she is a real ball buster.
A real ice queen.
I just burned my tongue.
You worked very solidly for about 20 years before you became famous and became a celebrity. What impact do you think it has on people if that really huge level of success comes later in your career rather than when you're very young and starting out?
I think it's hard to say, like, if I had experienced greater success earlier in life, how it would have affected me. I like to think that I would have been mature enough to not turn into a complete jerk. But you never know. I think by the time I did The Office and 40-Year-Old Virgin, which was sort of the turning point in my career, I was married. I had 2 kids. That was where my priorities were. So I think I had my head screwed on fairly well by that point in my life. It was great that it happened and it was exciting, but it didn't define me at that point, and I don't think I took it too seriously, and I was also, if always waiting for the other shoe to drop and just enjoying it while I could, but not having any expectations of it to continue.
Just being in the moment.
Yeah, I think that's the best way to go about it and not make any assumptions.
Well, Steve, I hope you're enjoying your visit here. Thank you for making time to speak to our audience.
My pleasure.
And a longer version of that interview will be available on our website.